Hello, I'm Tiffany Cloud. Welcome to The Storm, and thank you for watching today on WYLN 35. Today, I'm joined by a man with a long history of service in government. He's been a state representative, a district attorney, and a judge on numerous courts in the Commonwealth. Today, he's here to reflect on his career, and we're going to discuss all sorts of exciting things about serving as a judge. So, joining me on The Storm this week, the Honorable Correale Stevens, right after the break. Welcome back to The Storm. I am so pleased to be joined for the first time by the Honorable Corey Stevens. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. It's a great public service you do. I think it's terrific.
Well, I try. But you know, had I taken your advice when I was a wee lass, I would have gone to law school and gotten a law degree. You told me to do that. I didn't listen, and now look at me. So I wish I had listened to your advice.
You're doing great, but you could still go to night school. It's not a problem.
I'll think about that. Oh boy, I'll think about it. You have had, Your Honor, had such an impressive career of service to the community as I open the show. I mean, you've been, for those who aren't as familiar with you, the younger crowd watching especially, you've been a state representative, you've been a district attorney, you've served on the Court of Common Pleas, you've served on the Superior Court, highest court in the land, in the Commonwealth, and it's remarkable. And so first of all, thank you for all of your service to our community.
I mean, it's the people in this area that have always supported me. Without that, none of that would have happened.
Well, I wanted to ask you what you think your formula has been for success. Why do you think that you have connected and resonated for so many offices for so long with the people?
I don't know. I just like to be out in the community, talk to people, see what their problems are, try to help them. And I think that's what people want. They want to have a responsive government, people that listen when they speak and try to do the right thing when they want help.
If there is a young law student or a young lawyer watching right now who's considering possibly running for public office, what sort of advice would you give that person?
Just do community service, work with people, see what people are thinking. Just try to be a good citizen. Okay.
Speaking of young people, I understand that in addition to all the other things that you have done, you have taught criminal justice. Tell the audience a bit about what you're doing in that regard and what you have done in that regard.
Oh, I've been teaching a long time. I teach one night a week, or I have at Penn State Hazleton and taught at Penn State Wilkes-Barre. I'll be teaching a criminal justice course at Wilkes this fall, and doing an online course for the Lackawanna Police Academy. And that also keeps me up to date when I get questions and get into good discussions about the law with students. And it's interesting for me too. It is.
Lately I've been watching on Tuesday nights, they're doing this, the mini series about the OJ trial, which of course we all remember from
Yes.
the 90s. And it's just been so interesting. It's just brought back so many thoughts about high-profile cases. So since you are here, and since you've worked high-profile cases, I wanted you to give some insights into how trial judges deal with high-profile cases, like a Sandusky case, for example, and things that maybe are happening that aren't so obvious that you're having to deal with also.
There is a lot that goes on behind the scenes to get ready for trial. The ultimate goal of the trial, as we know, is to make sure that the accused or the defendant gets a fair trial. And to do that in a high-profile case, the judge has a lot of work to do. The Sandusky case was handled by a judge I happened to serve on Superior Court with for a while, Judge John Cleland. By all accounts, he did an excellent job. But it starts just with preparation. The courtroom alone in Bellefonte could only handle so many people. And there were media there from all over the world. In addition, in the normal courtroom, we have what's called the courthouse work group, which it includes the judge, the tip staff, the defendant, security, the lawyers for both, the prosecutors. So right off the bat, you've got some people that you have to make sure in the courtroom. Of course, the judge, you know, and then you have the jury, so you have to take care of the jury. And then there's this demand like O.J., Charles Manson a long time ago, Sandusky, where people want to come in and watch. And that's where the judge has a lot of work to do.
What is your position in terms of cameras in the courtroom?
Well, I'm kind of like, I have always been in favor of cameras in the courtroom. And what we're doing now with the news media, again in Sandusky, Judge Cleland did not allow recordings from the courtroom. But what he did do was he worked it out with the news media. They had it set up so that several reporters inside could give a news feed to the others, and then they could report it on their own. And then the media would take turns in different days. Different reporters would get inside. And then they had to save room in the trial for people from State College, Bellefonte, that want to go see a trial, because they're all open to the public. Anybody can go up to Wilkes-Barre and watch any criminal or civil trial whenever they want. It's open to the public. That's very important. Now, juvenile court's different.
Sure.
That's under different rules.
Right.
So there is a rule right now that the Supreme Court made. Reporters want to be able to tweet and use their laptops from the courtroom. I personally don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good idea, because it's actually, I think it's more accurate, because the reporter doesn't have to like scribble some notes, run outside,
Right.
put it all together. They could just do it from the courtroom. So right now it's up to the individual trial judge
To make that determination.
to decide if they want to allow a laptop. And some judges do, some don't. Cameras are not permitted in the courtroom except for ceremonial reasons right now. But I personally don't think that that's a problem to have a camera in the courtroom. It gets more people involved in the process watching it.
Right.
But the high-profile cases are a lot of work.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk a little more about high-profile cases. I also want to, though, before we go to our first break, you brought to my attention before we rolled tape tonight that there is a website that I just want to tell the audience about a bit. It's called pacourts.us, and you were telling me that all of the judges' bios are on this. Decisions that judges rendered can be found there.
Yes. The Supreme Court, and then the intermediate appellate courts, the Commonwealth Court, which handles cases on election matters, which handles cases from state agencies, all their opinions are on there. The Superior Court handles all criminal appeals and most civil appeals, a malpractice case, for example. The opinions are all searchable, or if you go on today, you could see what was filed today.
And that Superior Court in Pennsylvania is the busiest court in the appellate court in the United States, isn't it?
It's the busiest intermediate appellate court. They get approximately 8,000 cases a year to deal with, and amazingly, there is no backlog. There is absolutely no backlog.
It's really impressive. Well, with that, we're going to take a break. We will be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. I'm joined today by the Honorable Correale Stevens. We had talked in the first segment a bit about the Sandusky case. Were you involved at all in the Sandusky appeal?
Yes, I was, and I can talk about it because I never got to have to make a decision on it.
Oh, yay, good. Oh, this will be fun. Okay.
I was still on Superior Court, and I was the president judge.
Okay.
And I like to take the court into the communities. We had court in Hazleton High School at one point. We had court at MMI. We had court at Dallas High School, some other places, in addition to law schools. And I had scheduled the appellate court at Dallas Area High School in Dallas, Pennsylvania. And I didn't know it at the time, but the Sandusky case was on the list. And when it was in the paper that the Sandusky case was going to be at Dallas High School, people didn't understand the process. And I got a lot of calls from parents who were saying, why are you going to have Sandusky in the high school by our children?
Oh dear.
And then I had to explain to everybody, and we tried to put it in the media too, that he was in jail and he wasn't going to be there, but his lawyers would be there.
Right.
But to solve any issues, what we did was we held the cases at Dallas, and then we took his case, and through the courtesy of then President Judge Tom Burke, we had the argument at the courthouse. I ended up not being there that day because right before then I got nominated and appointed, confirmed to the Supreme Court. So there was a separate 3-judge panel. But people didn't understand that Sandusky didn't come himself.
Right.
But we did. That's why we like to take the court into the community,
Yeah,
so
I like
people
that
could see it.
idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
people could see their appellate courts. It's different. It's not like a trial. It's the lawyers arguing. And it's never one judge. It's always, on Superior Court, there are always 3-judge panels. On Supreme Court, all 7 when it's a full staff, all 7 members. So people could sit and in the run-of-the-mill case, they might not find it interesting, but in the high-profile cases,
sure.
they know the case, and it's fun to listen to the legal arguments.
So who would make the decision then that you're going to take it into the community and which community you take it into? How does that all get decided?
In Superior Court, it would be the president judge. So when I was president judge,
That was your decision.
we scheduled them across the state. If there are budgetary problems now, that may be why you're not seeing as many. But I know that the current president, Judge Susan Gantman, she's also committed to, she has a lot of students come to the courtroom in Philly, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh, where we hold court. So she's committed too. It's just sometimes with the budget, you can't move around the state as much as you'd like.
Sure. You know, one of the things I wish, I had never really, with the exception of Court of Common Pleas, Luzerne County, I had never really interviewed any judges until this last election cycle. I interviewed people for Pennsylvania Superior Court. I interviewed, there were 7 people, inclusive of the independent, who were running for Supreme Court. I interviewed 5 of them. I did that, Your Honor, because I feel it is extremely important for people to be educated on the judicial branch. People get so caught up in the executive branch races, and they get so excited about the legislative and Congress and Senate. But then, you know, when it's the judge, everybody, the judicial races, everybody falls to sleep. But these men and women are on the courts a decade, 2 decades, sometimes a lifetime. Can you help the audience understand why it is so important to pay attention to judicial races?
Well, because every day, hundreds of decisions across the Commonwealth are being made by judges that affect everybody's everyday life. When the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania makes a decision, let's say it's on police conduct or on property tax or on something, that is binding law across the state. And when the Superior Court makes a decision in criminal law, again, that's binding in the entire state. And common police judges run in the county, so they have a tremendous amount of discretion in their decision making. So I think I like to see when people will, like what you're doing now as a public service, that people kind of understand their courts better. That's why I think the courts should go out in the community. That's why I don't think cameras in the courtroom is a bad idea.
Right, to give the transparency so people can understand the process. And the truth is, it's important that people understand there are sometimes attempts by the federal government to overreach and infringe upon the states, and you need to pay attention to what the legislative branch, or excuse me, the judicial branch is doing in the state, whether it is as related to a voter ID, whether it's related to Second Amendment, any of our rights.
The courts have a tremendous power that they took right at the beginning when the country was formed. The power of judicial review, which, as you know, means that a judge or a court can say that an act of the legislature is unconstitutional, therefore it can't be enforced. That's a tremendous power because, as you said, you know, judges are in office for a long time. Now, on the other hand, you don't want to have judges, running for office every 2 or 3 years,
right? Because
then they can't really be as independent as they should be. They're always going to be campaigning, and
when you think of the Supreme Court of the United States these days, it always seems like the liberal judges go one way, the Republicans go this way. You could almost figure out who's going to vote which way on certain issues.
Yes.
I mean, it's unfortunate that it's become that, because politics really,
Yes.
the law should technically know no political party.
Absolutely, that's correct.
Do you find that you've seen that kind of division as much on the high courts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, or not so much?
I have never seen it. In my 2.5 years on the Supreme Court, I never saw a decision that was based on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you look at decisions and look how we all voted, because it's all public, it's on the website, you can see there's a mix. So it depends on the issue. Whether it's a tax issue, a criminal justice issue, you may see 2 Republicans voting with the Democrats or 1 Democrat voting with the Republicans. Decisions are not made based on political parties. Now, in the Supreme Court of the United States, it seems like there's more of a partisan divide.
Yeah.
But I have not seen that in any of the courts that I've been on in Pennsylvania. I'm happy to say that.
That is comforting, actually,
Happy to say
because
that.
in the last race, all 3 of the open seats were all taken by Democrats, and so one of the questions I had was based on that, whether the court might tilt in a more liberal way because of that. So if precedent continues, that's certainly a bit comforting.
I mean, I served with 2 of the 3, and I know the third one. I mean, they're going to make decisions, and I've already seen some that are based on what they think the law is, what the law is, and I've already seen, like, Democrats and Republican voting together, where another Democrat might be in a dissent. The dissent is when a judge doesn't agree with the majority.
Sure. Okay.
So I haven't seen it.
It's very interesting to know. And with that, we're going to actually take a break. We will be right back on The Storm. Welcome back to The Storm. There are a lot of people across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who have been big supporters of yours, certainly a lot of people in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I know that they were very disappointed when you did not get to remain on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I'd like to give you an opportunity to really talk about that and talk about that race. And I mean, you had this big successful run. So what do you think was different this time, perhaps?
Well, I had run statewide twice before and was successful for Superior Court, so it's not that I didn't understand the differences in the state, but it was kind of unusual because from what I was told, I was in the position of being on the Supreme Court and running in an election instead of a yes-no vote, which is different because in a yes-no retention,
Yes.
you don't have an opponent.
Right.
But instead, I was running with several others. And then one of the things I considered was if I had the Republican Party endorsement, I didn't think that would look good when I'm making decisions in court, even though it wouldn't affect me. I didn't want people to think it did. So it was a difficult situation because it was just tough working on the court and trying to win an election at the same time.
I imagine it would
But
be.
I mean, the people here have been great. They gave me tremendous support.
They did?
You know, I
They
think
did.
I just went one too many times.
Yeah, well,
I
how
think
many
after,
races have you done?
Something like 17, and then this one more. I think maybe I shouldn't have taken that last one. But
it's
then I
always
would've wondered.
when you're eating that meal, it's always the last bite they end up splashing your tie. Isn't that the case? It's always
I
the
would
last.
have wondered. I would have wondered, why didn't I do it? So
Right.
I thought I'd try.
Well, I'm sure you're going to remain plenty busy on Superior
Well,
Court.
it's very busy, yes.
Yes, yes, and I really want to close out actually having you tell us a bit about what's next and what's next for you.
Well, I still like to be active in the community, and to the extent I can, I'm still serving on Superior Court. I would like to return some of the panels of court back in the community so people could see that happening.
Okay.
And as I said, I'm going to teach at Wilkes, and I'll be teaching to the State Police Academy. And I like doing a lot of public things. People are interested in the law and government, and even though I don't watch a lot of the judge TV shows,
Yes.
my wife Louise and I started watching Boardwalk Empire. We watched
Oh,
all
fabulous.
the seasons.
Fabulous.
Now we're on The Sopranos. We're way behind the world
Oh
on
yeah,
The Sopranos.
you're just catching up. My
And,
goodness.
a lot of these shows are really, really good, and about some of them involve the criminal justice system.
Sure. Well,
like
you have to watch Billions now too, because it's the U.S. Attorney's Office against a hedge fund guy. It's on Showtime. It's fantastic.
Right.
It's one of my favorite shows. So, of course, right after The Storm.
When you're not watching your
When
show.
you're not watching
Okay,
The
that's
Storm,
fine.
you could tune in and watch Billions. Exactly. I really also wanted to just ask you about, as we're closing out the show, what do you think are some of the greatest things about being a judge? What do you most enjoy about the job you've had for so long?
I think just really loving to write and research the law, and I love being in the courtroom, getting into discussions with the lawyers about their cases, about the law, sometimes about legal philosophy, and there's a good give and take there, and it's great to be able, and I thank the people of this area, because without them I wouldn't have had the opportunity.
Right.
It's just great, and I like working with colleges and law students when we take court into the schools, because there's a lot of interest. And one time, one of the Superior Court judges and we reversed everything. What we did at Drexel Law School was we argued as we were the lawyers, and we had some of the students be the judges.
How fun.
So we got to play lawyer, and that was really a lot of fun.
Yeah,
that
did you
really
win?
Well, the students were afraid to make a decision. So it was a tie.
It was a tie because nobody wanted to get a bad grade that semester.
They're going to be smart lawyers. They're going to be good lawyers.
They're very good lawyers. Your Honor, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And you are welcome back anytime.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Remember, folks, when you look around and you don't like what you see, don't complain about it. You can do something about it. Thank you for watching.